Alright, today we're going to continue with Chapter 3, focusing on Section 3, solving inequalities using multiplication or division. And you'll see there's, again, some very strong ties to how we solve equations as to how we solve inequalities. Okay? First thing, again, we treat the inequality like it was an equation. So again, if you're good with solving equations, if you feel pretty confident with that, solving inequalities should come pretty easily to you. Okay? Just to review, multiplication cancels out any division or fractions, and then division cancels out multiplication just like it does in an equation. Okay, so we're going to basically rewrite the inequality, or you don't necessarily need to rewrite it, but just treat it like it was an equation and solve it accordingly. Okay. The second thing that is very important, anytime we multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality symbol must flip. Okay, so if we multiply or divide to try and cancel something out by that negative number, the inequality symbol has to flip. Okay, and I'll show you exactly why with this example. Alright, if you think of the inequality, 3 is greater than 1. Now this is a pretty obvious inequality. 3 is bigger than 1. Okay? If we're to multiply both of these sides by a negative number, let's say we multiplied 3 by a negative 2, and 1 times a negative 2. Alright, the resulting action here is 3 times a negative 2 is a negative 6, is greater than 1 times a negative 2, which is a negative 2. Okay, now this is not a true statement. Negative 6 is much less than negative 2, so that inequality symbol then must flip. Negative 6 is less than negative 2. Okay, so just a really quick example of why this flipping of our signs actually works. Okay, but let's just take a look at some examples of how to solve these inequalities and graph them right at the chute. Okay, so A, we got some number divided by 6 is greater than or equal to 7. Okay, again, we solve this. If we wanted to undo a fraction, we would multiply by 6 because fractions are basically just like division problems. Alright, so we're going to multiply by 6. We cancel here and here. Multiply this side by 6, and we get f is greater than or equal to 7 times 6, or 42. Okay? And again, the quick graph is just a 3-point graph. Okay, we got 42, 0, and negative 42. These are all values of f that are greater than or equal to, so we've got a closed dot, and we're going that way. Okay? Letter B, negative 4 is less than or equal to h over 5. Okay? Negative 4 is less than or equal to h over 5. So again, we've got to cancel off our division of 5, or our fraction, by multiplying by 5. Multiply this side by 5. We get cancellations that go on. 5 times a negative 4 is a negative 20. Now this one is a little bit trickier just because, we think, okay, multiply by a negative number. This number, the number that we're multiplying by, has to be negative. It doesn't matter if this number is negative at all, right? The number on the left side. So this is still negative 20. Sign does not flip because we didn't multiply by a negative. Is less than or equal to h. Okay? Negative 20 is less than or equal to h. Quick graph, again, a 3-point graph, and we're getting in the habit of graphing every one. We go negative 20, 0, and a positive 20. Since this is less than or equal to, or actually h is greater than or equal to negative 20, we've got a closed circle here, and we're going this way. Okay, so again, not too much different than equations. Solve the inequality graph multiplying by a negative number. So in this case, we are actually going to get that sign flip. Okay? A over a negative 8 is less than or equal to 4. Okay? So we're going to multiply by that negative number. So multiply by negative 8 on both sides. Again, anytime you see that multiplication of a negative, we need to flip our sign. Times negative 8. A is then equal to, our sign flips, greater than or equal to 4 times a negative 8, which is a negative 32. Okay? The only check we need really is that graph. And again, it gets kind of monotonous. We do the same steps, but that's how we build that automaticity, or making this an automatic process. Negative 32. So A is greater than or equal to. We've got a closed dot on our negative 32, and we're saying all values that are greater than a negative 32. So over here. Okay. Now, just to check, since we're dealing kind of with our first negative number, if we throw 0 in for this, 0 over a negative 8 is 0, and 0 is less than or equal to 4. So that's kind of a good way to go through your check and just plug the value 0 in if it is included in our set and check that one. Alright. Letter B, 6 is less than or equal to a negative x over 15. Okay, negative x over 15. Now we're dealing with a negative number here. We're multiplying by a negative, so we're going to times this whole side by negative 15 and times this side by negative 15 to cancel off our division of 15. Okay? Negative 15 times 6, that gets us to about negative 90, I do believe. Alright, we get a sign flip. Alright, sign flip, so negative 90 greater than or equal to x. If we wanted to flip this, we could say x is less than or equal to negative 90. Our graph for this, again, make it easy. Negative 90, 0, 90. X is less than or equal to negative 90. We've got a closed circle here. Since we're going less than negative 90, our arrow is going to point that way. Okay, so again, it's not a whole lot different than how we would solve an equation. Just make sure you understand the sign flip. Okay. Let's take this onto a real life example. Let's say you're given a fish tour. All right, fish tours on Lake Mille Lacs. You charge each person in the boat $35 a person. Okay, so you charge $35 per person. You need to earn at least $140 per day in order to pay for the expenses of the trip. How many people must take a tour in order for you to go or to make money? So we got to make a profit here. We got to make that cheddar. Got to make dollars. All right, so if we're dealing with $35 per person, let's let P equal the number of people. All right, and we're making $35 per person, so 35 times P. Okay, we need to earn at least, here's the key word, at least $140 per day. Okay, $140. So we're going to say at least $35 per person needs to be greater than or equal to $140. Okay? So greater than or equal to $140. Now, if we were to treat this like an equation, all right, 35p, let's say it was equal to 140, we would divide both sides by 35. Divide by 35, divide this by 35, and we get our answer of p, or the number of people, has to be greater than or equal to, well, 35 divided by 140, I believe that should come out to being about 4 people. All right? So on your boat, you must have at least 4 people, otherwise you're not going to make any money. Okay? 4 people per day. Now, this is saying that you can definitely make more. You probably want to make more. All right, that's kind of the purpose of an inequality, saying this is at least 4 people to make money for your trip. Okay? So again, this is just dividing both sides by a positive number. Notice there's no sign flip. All right? We'll finish just with dividing by a negative number. Again, same deal. We flip the sign whenever we divide or multiply by a negative number. All right, so we get negative 8y is greater than or equal to 68. In this case, we are going to divide both sides by a negative 8. Divide by a negative 8, and we get y not equal to, I'm going to cut myself. Come on. Y is now, we flip this, y is less than or equal to negative, or 68 over negative 8. I believe that is a negative 8.5. Okay? Y has got to be less than or equal to negative 8.5. Okay, we're getting pretty good at the graph, so we'll skip that part. Excuse me. Last one here. Dealing fractions. Okay? Remember, anytime we want to divide by a fraction or divide by negative 3/8, we are saying that's the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So, reciprocal of 3/8 is 8 over 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both sides by a negative 8 over 3. Alright? These cancel, and we should get, if we multiply this side by a negative 8 over 3, okay? We've got x alone on the left side, since these are all canceled out. We need a sign flip, since we're dividing by a fraction or a negative fraction, so we need a sign flip. x is now greater than or equal to -3 times the -8, that's 24, over 4 times 3, which is 12. X is greater than or equal to 2. Okay. Now I hope this helps. Again, it's very similar to equations, so if you're doing well with those, this should come relatively easy to you. Make sure you watch your flips. All right.